another empowering episode of Strive 365, your go-to source for conquering life's challenges and thriving no matter the odds. Whether you're seeking mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual growth, we're here to help guide you towards a better life. I'm your host, Justen Arnold, coming from the amazing Rock Studio. Today on Strive 365, we're thrilled to welcome Michael Padula. He's a trailblazer in the realm of wellness and pain elimination. Michael's unique approach combines cutting-edge techniques with timeless wisdom to help individuals overcome physical and emotional barriers. With a deep commitment to empowering others, he's dedicated his life to not just alleviating pain, but transforming lives through holistic wellness. Sounds similar to some of the things we talk about on here. His work, deeply rooted in the beliefs that everyone deserves to live a life free of pain, full of potential, has inspired countless individuals to reclaim their well-being and stride confidently towards their best lives. So join us as we dive into Michael's journey, uncover his insight, and explore how we can all live more vibrant, pain-free lives. Now, after that humble introduction, Mike, is there anything you'd like to add? Ah, cool, man. Well, why don't you tell the guests some things maybe that I might have left off, like where you're from, what you're doing, when you got started, and we'll start chipping away and just having a conversation here.
Okay. I grew up in New Jersey, Clifton, New Jersey, not far from Giant Stadium. When I was a kid, I went to elementary school. Most of the parents were together. My parents were divorced. I was one of the few people that had divorced parents. So when I went to school, I went to kindergarten, I showed up. I was fat. I had no idea because I was an only child and everyone else was skinny. So I think my mom tried to give me food to replace my father. I ended up getting sick. I was a very sickly child, almost did not graduate second grade.
Oh,
I had straight A's, but I was out of school so many days. I told my mom, if I missed one more day of school, he's got to be let back. So I made it and everything was fine. And then my uncle, like when I was about 12, bought me a tennis racket and a motorcycle, and I was never home to eat. I was either on the motorcycle in the woods or playing tennis. Weight started coming off, and that's when I started taking a look into fitness and wellness. I'd already been skiing too, so I started working out in the gym in school, started paying more attention to what I ate, started reading books, and that's how it all started.
I'm still stuck on bought you a tennis racket and a motorcycle. I'm sorry, like that's so random. It's pretty neat though. It's pretty cool. Hopefully you aren't using both at the same time though.
No, I never thought about that.
We'd invent a new sport here. I'd watch that probably. I don't know. Anyhow, yeah. So that's really interesting. So would you say those things shaped who you are to where you are today?
Well, I started realizing I did not want to live a life being sick. And when I started losing the weight, started moving around, I was not sick anymore. So that's when I started putting two and two together. So if I'm going to live a life, I want to be healthy and live a good, happy life. So I went to Montclair State College. I studied nutrition at Montclair State. That was on the low-fat movement. It was at its beginning.
Low-fat, high sugar. Let's go.
Yeah. So I was already working out in a bodybuilding gym when I was 16. And in nutrition, they're like low fat, I said, well, this makes sense. I want to be a bodybuilder, don't want to eat fat, want to have a low fat body. And I was in pain. Like I had joint pain, right? I had muscle pain, everything hurt. By the time I was 22, 23, like the younger guys, like, well, you're getting old. I'm like, I'm 23.
How old are you now, Mike? Just so I can get a time frame on like 16, 23.
What's that?
How old are you right now? Just so I can get a time frame on 16 and 23.
I'm 64.
You're 64. So there you go. Okay, years. Yeah. I that's me. If anybody else doesn't, they'd be like, I don't care. But I'm always curious of I'm trying to think what was going on in the world and stuff like that. So continue.
So I was weak. I was in the gym, but I wasn't strong. Wasn't getting stronger. I was in pain. So I said, you know what? I need to go vegetarian because maybe it's the fat in the chicken breast. And that didn't work out either. So in 1995, I met Charles Poliquin, who's probably one of the greatest strength coaches of all time. He had more world record holders, more Olympic medalists than anyone. And I started studying his work and started going to his seminars. And I interned with him in 1998. And Charles' thing was not just training, but nutrition. He was looking for anything possible to give his athletes an edge. So he started doing research in nutrition and brought the nutrition aspect into it. And he met a guy named Dr. Eric Serrano. He's a medical doctor in Ohio, just outside of Columbus. And Eric works with the elite athletes. He had world record holders, gold medalists, using nutrition as a base. So Charles introduced me to Eric, and Eric's been my mentor for 27 years. And he said, we need to get some blood work on you. Yeah, my testosterone level was in the toilet. He changed my diet, changed my supplements, and I started getting stronger and losing. I had no pain. So I'm 64. I'm pain-free. Prior to COVID, my deadlift was 500 pounds. I do 14, 50-mile Spartan races, which I started doing in 2017. So prior to 2017, I never run across a parking lot.
Oh, wow.
And my first race in 2017 was a 14-mile Spartan race up and down a mountain in New Jersey. So that's where I am.
So, like, what got you? I mean, you explained a little bit, but it's just like, was it just the diet? Was it changing a mindset shift? Was it what you're doing in the gym? Was it something more spiritual? So many people, I'm 43 and I hear it, and it sounds like you had to battle a lot of adversity in the younger years. Really educate yourself, especially at a time where, man, we're still evolving in the nutritional education and even the movement. I mean, there was a time, I'll say this, there was a time where running was considered really, really good, but lifting weights would kill you. Like, so, I mean, that was back in like the 20s and 30s and maybe even earlier. But I remember part of it was like the guy that invented the deadlift, they thought, go on a tangent here, they thought that he died from doing deadlifting, which he called the life lift, I think, when he in the 1800s or whatever. But it wasn't that. It was something else that had nothing to do with it. And then I think it was part of the YMCA's movement of like convincing cardio was good, lifting was bad. But now here we are. You're going through a time where you weren't eating. You were just listening to what all the experts were saying, what the government was saying for you to eat, and you realize it was hurting you and not helping you.
Right.
So now you're doing these amazing things that like people half your age or even a third your age wouldn't even consider doing, especially in today's society. So what do you explain to some of that, physically, mentally?
It's three things. When I started studying under Charles, I interned with him in 1998. He had just moved his office into Colorado Springs, into Dr. Michael Leahy's office, who invented active release techniques. So that's probably the number one soft tissue technique in the world. And in 2 to 3 years, all of the pro athletes, all the teams had an ART provider. So I had Dr. Serrano in the nutrition end. He started teaching me the biochemistry and the physiology that I did not learn at college, which is crucial. Charles had the superior weight training methods, and Dr. Leahy had the superior methods for fixing injuries. So I started working with professional athletes with Charles in 1998. And that's when my eyes opened up. The way that professional athletes train, the way they eat, and the way they deal with injuries is nothing like the average person.
No.
So I assumed, I learned active release techniques. I fix injuries also with my hands.
That's awesome.
I said, well, by 3 or 4 years, 5 years tops, all this information is going to be to everyone in the free world. I need to get on this and start working this and learn everything I can to help all these people. And it's now, that was 98. So what, 26 years later, there's still no better. It did not pass. The pro athletes are here and everyone else is down here.
Why would you say that is? Why would you say that is? What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on like, why would you say it still hasn't trickled down?
Money.
Always, right? I mean, so we have some semi-pro teams here, and my daughter got to be, so we have a hockey team, semi-pro, that's connected to the Sabres, the Rochester Americans team, and my daughter got to be like the day reporter for the day. And I went with her one, she couldn't do it alone, obviously, but I was curious. And so I started looking at like their training, and man, I saw their supplements with their name, and it's just like all the things. And I've learned a lot too, because I've worked with some semi-pro and just what their day-to-day looks like and how everything's monitored and who they use and how they use it and all the things available to it. And I'm like, I get it. Not every human being in America can have access to this, but what about even just a small percentage? Like, why think of how much more better as a society we'd be mentally, physically, but yet we see in the food system. I was just talking to the guy that did my tattoos actually, because this article came out about 86% of, I don't know if it's 86% of tattooists or products used by tattooists have like cancer causing and all these different chemicals. So I reached out to him. I always knew he used like vegan and really like he used stuff that's like, as of right now, is like the best stuff you can use. It's not detrimental to your health when put into your skin. And that's one of the reasons why I went to him. And we were talking about it, and we started just talking about, it's like, and I just said, why is this? And it's like, well, you already know the answer. It's like, why is there a McDonald's on every block? And there's more carcinogens than that. It's like a box of Cheerios, which promotes and markets health. Well, but yet we're finding is, again, just as bad as sometimes a McDonald's cheeseburger is some of the carcinogens that are in and things of that nature. And so we were just talking about that. And it's just so interesting why isn't there more of a push for a better society? And you hear the money thing, but everybody would be better if they're healthier, right? Mentally and physically. Yet we're trying to prescribe it. We're trying to turn things into a business. What are your thoughts on all that?
Half of my business is nutrition. I hate to say nutrition, but it's more wellness. Like people that come to see me for that and are people usually that have been to doctors for 10, 20 years and don't feel good. The doctors can't figure it out. I had a 29-year-old girl. She was not feeling well since she was 17. I asked her, how many doctors have you seen? She goes, I've seen so many doctors, I cannot tell you how many. And the last I went to, she goes, I went to the Mayo Clinic, and they told me they could not help me. So I look at her blood work. I have something called the cell blueprint. Look at that. She's got fibromyalgia, and she's got chronic fatigue syndrome. She's got, they changed her diet. She had food allergies. She needed supplements to replace the nutrients she was missing. And it's not that difficult, but it's also something that people have to be willing to do. I've had people that, I've had women that have quit after 2 weeks. They didn't want to do what it takes.
Most don't, right? Is that what you found, that most don't? Or
most of the people that come to me, they're so tired of being sick and tired, they'll do what it takes.
I hear that. Yeah, it's similar from I have the capacity to work nutritionally, physically, life-wise, but majority of mine are like physical and from post-physical therapists, and similar thing. It's like this is the last straw. Like I've been really helped out a lot of people recently with like back issues, because I've had my fair share and I've never set limits. And, within weeks, I've gotten people out of just by proper movement, moving better, they feel better. It's like, this is the best I felt in like 10 years. And it sounds like similar. Hers, 29 to 17 in 12 years, and just some simple shifts and stuff. And there's so much information out there, and that's part of it. It's a part of it. Like people just freeze not knowing what it is. So not everybody can hire you or knows of you, so for people that are listening, where can we direct some people to start getting correct information or start finding answers, and getting, because it seems like, and it sounds like people are going to have to do their own work a little bit, but they're going to have to find somebody that wants to do the right thing, because it's like no one's gonna, like a doctor's not gonna save you, like it sounds like. So I mean, what do you suggest?
I put free information on my Facebook page, which is open to the public, Michael Padula. So that's a great source. But I should add, besides my mentor, Dr. Serrano, working with the elite athletes, on the other end of the spectrum, he works with the sickest people on the planet. So people are told by the best gastroenterologists in the country, you can't be fixed, you have to live with that. Or the best endocrinologist in the country, you can't be fixed, you have to live with that. But when they go to see Dr. Serrano, he has an 80% success rate. So he started teaching me that, besides what he taught about the elite athletes. I met another colleague, mentor in New York City, because I had a business in Jersey, and my people weren't going to go to Ohio. So I found someone called Dr. Morrison. He's one of the top doctors in New York City, did the same thing that Eric did, making people healthy. And they tell him, both doctors have told me, it's not the doctor's fault these days. It's the way they're taught in school and the way the systems, they don't have time to spend with people. So both Dr. Arnold, myself, Eric, Jeff, we spend an hour talking to a person, not 5-10 minutes. I want to know everything about the person's childhood and go deep. And I think that's the problem. Everyone just like tries to throw something at a person to take care of the symptoms and not go deep and find out what's causing the issue.
Find the root cause. I mean, that's a phrase I use regularly. I mean, that's what I do, right? You know, like I've gotten so many people from like different medical professionals, chiropractors, physical therapists, doctors, acupuncturists, massage therapists. And it's cool when you can work in a network, but I've also gotten them not just, you know, to find the best course of action for this person. It's also what you mentioned, just finding the root issue. You know, for somebody that's dealt with childhood trauma, some of that from the mental and the physical, how it's combined, and inflammation in the body, but also like, you know, I took a guy that was with, you know, he was having back issues too, and was with a pretty big name physical therapy place in the area. And he was with them for years, and he had never found any relief, and he was about to have surgery. And one, he wasn't ever taught how to hinge, really. He was just bending over a lot, rounding his back, didn't know how to squat. And I'm like, didn't know how, like, stretch, like just movement. And I'm like, what have you been doing with these places? And once we got him moving, starting to find some of the issue, like even when we got him moving better, he wasn't like feeling his muscles, like, cause they were almost like atrophied. Right. So just, you know, there's some things I did that I learned, but like one of the things that I did that is very unconventional is just like, you know, building that relationship. As I literally just took a massage gun on his hamstrings and his glutes, and then I even just like slapped it one day. It was almost like it woke it up. And then from there on out, he started not only moving even better, but started feeling the muscles, and just like his back pain started to get better, and then just eventually went away. And I was like, so crazy, right? And I'm sure you've got stories like that. Could you share some more of those? You shared one about the woman, but why don't you share some of, you know, your experiences with, you know, inspiring stories or overcoming obstacles of that nature?
You know, it's interesting. I had a woman came to me 3 years ago. She had a 3.5-year-old daughter. So I know you said you had a daughter. I have a daughter.
I have two. Yeah, I have a 14 and a 8-year-old daughter, and then 11-year-old son.
This woman's daughter is 3.5 years old. She was told she was classified by the state of Pennsylvania as classified, and a neuropsychologist said she had autism. And this woman was spending all kinds of money on some pretty out there things. Some definitely weren't going to work. Some were questionable. She asked me, she's like, "Can you help me?" I said, "Well, I never worked with a child before. I'll give it a shot. Let's take a look." So I looked at her blood work, and she was definitely nutrient deficient. The kid wouldn't eat. The kid was small. She was at the bottom end of the scale for her height and her weight. She would eat sugar. Anything with sugar she would eat, but she would not eat any real food. So I figured out the nutrient deficiency she had. And in 4 weeks, the kid started eating dinner and asking for seconds. And then like 3 months later, the mom sent me a text. She says, "You're not going to believe this. I just put my kid in childcare. I didn't think this was going to happen for another year. Thank you so much." And the kid's 6 now, and she's fine. So, but no one looks at the root cause. So
sorry, go ahead.
Then it's interesting. It's like, you know, I worked with women. I have a client that's 75. She had 20 doctors. She had severe gut issues. Her pain medication was so strong, they made her have Narcan on hand.
What?
Yeah, I was looking through her. So send me what you're taking, what medications you have. I'm like, I saw Narcan. I'm like, "Why do you get Narcan?" She's like, "Well, because the drugs are so strong, they want that in case anything happens to me, my husband can administer it." I got her pain-free in 4 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm like, I just look at this and I'm like, what is wrong with the system? Just fix the girls, the woman's got, find the foods out. She had food issues, take the foods out, fix the gut, case closed. I just don't understand what's going on in society tonight. What about you? What do you think?
I think you understand. It's just hard to wrap your head around because you're a caring human. I'm a caring human. You probably know a lot of caring humans, but there's other people out there that, you know, we could blame it on a lot of different things, but get lost in the day to day. Maybe it's you know, they could be have a nutrition deficit. They could be eating toxic foods that are messing with their brains, and just, you know, that who knows? It could be just a for-profit business model, a scarcity mindset. It could be a number of different factors, but it's just there's not enough people in the world that are just thinking people first, love first, and let's take care of these people. And some of it's like, I'm sure as you found, there's not a business per se because a lot of the things that can help a lot of people are, you know, out in nature or free or low cost, you know, like everybody can move every joint every day for the most part. Not everybody. Most people can move. And even just a simple walk through the woods has a number of different benefits. I mean, a lot of people are learning now, like being outdoors, breathing fresh air, things that we all used to do. Now we have to have science to prove it. And then we have to like hire people to tell us to do it. And like there's places in probably this country and in the world where people are paying people to go forest bathing and teach them how to do it, where you could just go walk barefoot by yourself, right? So there's all of these systems in place. But at the end of the day, like a lot of things, you know, if you can't start your own garden, get as real food as possible. Like, and then if something's bothering you, address that. And I love the stories that you just shared from the 65 or the 75-year-old, the child, because it's like, it shows sometimes it's not always going to work out that way per se, but we never stop to look at like what we're exposing ourselves to. I think sometimes, especially as we're so busy as parents. I'm a parent, you know, you know what that's like. And I think that's the other thing, like we're kept busy, so we can't stop and just look around and be like, oh my God, and question, oh, maybe if I would just cook a couple nights a week or get more real food around the house, and maybe if we just all move as a family, we'd connect and bond and be healthier mentally, and then we'd all be healthier physically. And then, no one wants to like say, it can't be the McDonald's, it can't be the fast food. We know it's not healthy, but that can't be affecting my mind that much. That can't be it. Let's go get a pill. Let's go talk to a doctor. There's got to be something seriously wrong. Diagnose me with something, right? I mean, so I don't know. It's one of these, we could talk at this till we're blue in the face. I'm always trying to figure out what can we do, even just the two of us and the people that are listening as a society. What can the people listening, like that's the point of this podcast, Strive 365. What is something somebody can do today and possibly every day, or to start making that positive impact and change?
I think it's getting better. And I think every time more people get healthier, it helps spread the word. Because what you just said, I used to have a training studio in New Jersey, and I was working with some clients 23 years ago. And one of the women was telling me, she's like, my husband doesn't care what he eats or exercise, because if something happens, he told me he's just going to go to the doctor and they're going to give him a pill.
People want the easy fix, right?
That's what you just mentioned. Yeah. That's exactly what you said. And I'm like, but it doesn't fix the issue. It just takes care of the symptom. There's no pill that fixes the problem. It just masks the symptom. And some people are like, you know, you and I live a different lifestyle. We live healthy, and this is who we are.
Yeah. Well,
Go
ahead. Sorry. No, I was just going to say I've been through my adversity too, and that's why I shared openly on social media, from my back pains to my mental, you know, trauma in my childhood, and from I separated this wrist, I've cut my hands open, I've broken my neck twice, I've torn all 4 rotator cuffs muscles in my left shoulder, and people just don't know these things. So I share these things openly because people might put me on this pedestal, but I'm like, I've been there too, and I've just have this no limit mindset, and I believe in the human body, and I believe in the healing process, and And I know that like from our past traumas and our pains can affect some of the things in the body. And I have no appendix, so nutritionally, like I'm very sound. But I've always had this mindset, well, for the majority of my life, of like finding purpose in the pain, the title of my first book for that reason. And it's like, adversity is just part of it. So we need to navigate around and through and help others through it. But I know not everybody has that. They want the easy. I mean, I had a client once who was training with me pretty regularly, seeing great results. And then he started sharing these things that like where you could sit in a chair and apparently it grows muscle or something and I'm like, but that might get there, but that won't do anything. Like I always tell people like working out is more for mental health than it is for physical health. That's my perspective, because now we know so much that it does for the brain, the gut, all of it, right? Our hormones. And so like, even if we could get strong, that would still, if we were depressed and just sitting in a machine and getting muscles, and even if we got those muscles from taking a pill, we would still be depressed because we're not doing anything for our mental health. But yeah, so sorry I went down there, but down a rabbit hole with that one. But it's just, so that's some of the things we can do is, I guess, is just talk to people and continue these podcasts and hopefully get people to be their own champion. But it's just still like, it's like the age old question right now with like health. How do we do that? How do we get people to like not look for the easy fix, find the root, how can they just stop, and start making that change?
I think what you said earlier too about walking, I'll be honest, I used to poo-poo walking, but then the research came out and showed all the benefits. So I tell people, especially, go out after dinner, start 5 minutes, walk 5 minutes out your front door, take 5 minutes back. Just start with that. On weekends, go for a longer walk. Movement, as you said, movement is key. You have to keep moving. That's something, I learned by accident back in college. I would stop working out for a couple of weeks. My back pain or whatever would get worse. I'd work out, it got better. I'd stop working out, my back pain got worse. Light bulb went off. I need to work out so I don't have back pain. Move. And I also used to use poo-poo. You have to do the gym. You have to lift heavy weights. And now I'm like, whatever works for you, do it. Move. Just don't sit there on the couch watching TV.
Yeah, and my movement, there's no one size fits all, and just know you're going to change. You don't if it starts to get boring, I'm all about having some fun, like having some play in it. Having a challenge is good too. But like where I'm at, like for example, when I found out I had 2 torn discs in my lumbar spine, got stuck in bed last year and couldn't move for like a day. I wanted to find what was really going on. I got away from like where I was lifting, and I still lift heavy, but I started playing around with different movement patterns, started getting back to just like some primal stuff that I used to do, crawling, more rotational patterns, exploring my body and the hips, and then I started when I could finally start running again, because I was regularly running with my daughter, which I've shared that story on here. I just started running every day, and I've been running at least a mile a day for like 410 days straight, and my body's never felt better, everything around it. And it's because I'm more intentional about my movement. I'm doing I'm really focused on like the hips and the shoulders, as far as like I'll spend 10 minutes every day doing, whether it's before my workout or like, just at some point before I do some major physical challenging stuff, that I will do this 10-minute thing that I've just kind of created that's my own, and it's weird, but I feel better, and it's a little fun. And so it goes back to like something you said there was, you're not meant to really feel these pains, and you're a testament at 64 that you're not some anomaly. You just need to kind of start moving and walking. And so what would you say to somebody that's listening, because there's so many people, like I feel especially as men, we were just told to suck it up, deal with it, but you don't have to. Like, what would you tell somebody who's struggling with their own challenges, especially related to pain, that are listening to this right now?
Move and eat well. I mean, I had a guy reach out to me who I knew 20 years ago. He actually used to work for me. And he goes, I see that you fix shoulder pain and all these different pains. I think I have a torn rotator cuff I have lumbar problems and I have a knee issue. Can you help me? I said, well, help everyone else. So sure. So I go to he goes, I can't drive to you in Pennsylvania. I'm in Jersey. He lives by my daughter. I said, well, I'll come see you when I go visit my daughter. Well, he didn't tell me he was always a big guy. He was always around 260, 265. He didn't tell me he was now 365 pounds. He had 2 stents and he was on insulin. He's a diabetic. So I did some work on his shoulder and his back. And I said, listen, the only way this is going to work is if you lose weight. Your body can't hold that 365 pounds. He dropped 120 pounds in 4 months and got off insulin.
Oh, wow.
And he went back to the gym. He was bench pressing. That's what it's like. He wanted to bench press again. He went back to the gym. He moved. So ultimately, it's about the person's driving what they want to accomplish. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like we said earlier, you need to find your deep why on what you're doing, and I'm always a big proponent of that. And sometimes we need some help digging that because we don't want to like address it. We don't want to go there. I feel like because then it becomes real. Like so many of my clients, I've gotten to why they're really coming through the door. And it's not their service level reason they usually give me, oh, I want my back pain to go away. Well, why? Oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, why? Like, I want to get ready for this vacation. And why? And then what's after that? Like, so just getting there, and everything's usually about relationships. It's always about the relationship with himself or a relationship with others. Or, I have this story of, a guy who wanted to lose weight, and he kept saying because it's the right thing to do, it's healthy. He looked dumbfounded when I said, well, why do you want to lose weight? Like looking at me like I'm an idiot. Like I don't know, like who is this guy? Like because it's healthy, it's the right thing to do. But I'm like, why? Like what's that gonna do to you? Trying to paint a picture, and that's what I tell people. Like talk to somebody, but if you can't, write it out. Like really keep going down that rabbit hole until it gets to an emotional level. Because basically with this guy, it was he wanted to be alive long enough to see his grandchildren get married. And I was like, well, do you just want to sit on the bench and watch, or do you want to walk them down the aisle? Do you want to be physically able? And then not just walk them down the aisle, do you want to be physically able to dance with them in the wedding, or do you want to be in a wheelchair and just watching everybody? And he's like, and he started crying, man, because it was like, so that's why you do these things. That's why sometimes you got to make a choice, and it's the hard choice of like the comfort easy of driving through a drive-through. I'm not saying never go to McDonald's ever again, but like, hey, let's minimize that. And like when you feel tempted at your lowest moment, it's easy to just say yes to the comfort, knowing that it's not thinking of the discomfort it's going to give later on, but going for what might feel uncomfortable that's going to bring the ultimate comfort of you dancing with your granddaughter at her wedding. That's the ultimate comfort, right? And so to go for that, you got to sometimes put down some of these, go for a walk around the block. I mean, enough studies, like you said, the simple thing of just walking, you don't need to walk fast. You don't even walk with weights like you see some people. Like there's a woman, I love her. She goes around my block. I swear she's like walking for like 3 hours straight. She's carrying weights and she's going as fast as she can. She looks great. She's healthy. You don't have to do that. In fact, walk with some friends. There's a benefit of walking socially with friends. I would say, like you said, lift weights occasionally heavy, because like I said, there's the mental benefits of that. And so let's shift into that gear a little bit. How important is the mindset to overcoming some of this physical and emotional pain?
You touched on a couple of things there. Part of the issue, in my opinion, based on what I've seen in the research, we have a lot of nutritional issues, which are affecting our neurotransmitters. We've got gut issues, which are affecting the neurotransmitters. So I get it. It's not easy. You need to find your why, as you said, to help take care of everything and move forward. Otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere. And this is what I see. I see young kids sitting on the couch in their 20s. I know someone who's in their 20s and just sitting in the couch and over 300 pounds. They have no why. And their family works out and eats well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everyone's got to find what works for them. As far as movement, I think I think people should get outside more. I definitely think that's part of the issue. Everyone spends too much time indoors between work, sleep, eating, and very few people are outside. As you said, forest bathing, in my opinion, is phenomenal. And no one goes out.
What would you say to the person? So, I mean, I feel like people know that. So what would you say to the person that's like, well, I don't have time to do that?
Yeah, I always hear that, but I'm friends with a lot of professional bodybuilders, and they have full-time jobs. They have families with children, and they still get to go to the gym 2 hours every day, and they still get the meal prep. So I've heard of like 9 pro IFBB pro bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So if they can do it, they get the same amount of time in every day as you do. It can be done. It's an excuse.
So then the next question is, okay, so I make the time, I create the time, which is what I tell people. You create time. Time is an illusion. You can create it.
Like that.
And get around that. And then, so then their next thing will be, okay, I'll create the time, but I don't even know where to start. And so people get stuck there. What would you say is the first thing they should do? Just go for a walk or go get a gym membership?
Whatever is easiest to them. Hey, if you want to ride a bicycle, ride a bicycle. Whatever makes you happy, move. I don't care if it's watching a yoga video and doing that.
I took on hockey. I took on hockey 2 years ago because I got 2 kids that play, and it's been the best thing ever. People are scared to like do roller skates or bikes or other things. Don't be afraid. Like, there's teachers out there. There's ways to do it. Because there's even benefits in going into things that you're afraid of or you may not want to do initially. Your brain actually grows. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Like, there's growth in your brain. They're showing new research when you do challenging things that you don't really want to do that are good for you. Like, if you don't want to go work out, you're going to get smarter. Like, if you they found a lot of this out from like the cold plunge. Of course, you can't love the cold plunge. You still got to hate it, and you get benefits of like the brain grows, right? And new neural connections in the brain. So, there's even benefits in that. So who doesn't want to get smarter, right? And then we talk about like, big thing for if your men listen to this, hormones, testosterone. You mentioned like with your food, how like you could have probably looked healthy on the outside, but your testosterone levels are low, and how like food is affecting that. And then also like erectile dysfunction, the big ED that nobody wants to talk about, like that's affecting a lot of young men these days. And it could be a number of things. It could be, that they have high access to porn or something, but it's also food and your environment and what you're watching and the lack of blood flow and movement. I mean, my parents, for example, well, let's pause, but let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm both for men and women. I'm going to say real quick, Dr. Serrano, when he became a doctor in 1990, on the blood labs, the testosterone level for normal in 1990 was 400 to 1100. Well, now it's 200 to 1,000. And let me tell you, if your testosterone is below 400, you got a problem. You don't feel well.
Yeah.
And because that's the norms, and likewise, I'm seeing a lot of women in the 40s with hysterectomies. I've seen women in their 30s with PCOS, and it's a food issue. Like people like, "Oh, I have PCOS. It's a hormone issue." Like, yes, it's your hormones. So what's causing your hormones to be out of whack? It's the food you're eating and the insulin spiking up, which is affecting how your hormones are made. It's always, you have to go deep, and I think people try to just do the shallow stuff when you really need to go deep and look at the food. And I studied under an osteopath from France for 3 years, early 2000s. And we were out to dinner one night and said, "Dr. Boyd, what surprised you the most about the United States?" Without missing a beat, he goes, "The poor quality of the food." Now, in 2010, I'm with my daughter in Knoxville, Tennessee at the World Wakeboard Championships. Harley Clifford, who was a 17-year-old points leader, sits down next to us in the hotel with his father and his brother. They start talking to us. Says, "Harley, what surprised you the most about the United States?" The kid's 17. He goes, "The poor quality of the food." Exactly what Dr. Boyer said. This kid's 17. As the
Well,
same
it's
year,
just what they get in other countries, right? We allow so many more things into our food products that are, I mean, that are banned in other countries. I remember looking at a list where like, I think it was, I don't know, like almost 2,500 or 3,000 different ingredients that we allow into our food products. That's just food. Like, let's talk about our yeah, it's probably more. Let's talk about our makeup. Let's talk about our tattoo ink. Like, yeah, it's so much stuff that we allow here isn't allowed in other places. I mean, I think that 3,000 was probably like 10 years ago, but now it's probably, now that we actually know the truth.
I just posted this on Facebook. I looked it up.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't see that.
It was like probably about a month ago. 325 food additives are allowed in Europe. 320, I think it's 325. It's over 10,000 now in the United States.
10,000, there you go. So think about it.
Even if it was 3,000.
And we already know like plastic is in all your water, even your filtered water. So it's like we're already getting like a credit card a week, I think is what it is. So we need to do our part. And this isn't to scare you. I'm not saying all this, if it helps, hey, be scared. But no, like I just look at it deeper. So, I mean, I'm not going to go real deep on mine, but it's not necessarily always about me. But as a father, it's about my kids. Like, I want to show them be the best dad. You know, I would attribute like these foods to like fights and tempers and energy and activity and then inflammation and body. So like, you don't have to be a genius and a nutritionist and know it. Just like, yeah, you don't have to get organic everything. Like it might just start with, hey, maybe. So this is where things become problematic and people get frozen where you don't want to eat anything. It's like vegan's bad. No, meat's bad. That's bad. Like, oh, it should be this apple with these numbers on it. It should only be, at the end of the day, if you're eating an apple versus like a boxed meal or fast food, you're going to be better off. Even if it does have, like we go on and on about pesticides, like wash it really good, right? Like wash all your stuff really good. I wash my eggs. Even if they're organic, like, because you never know who, like, just wash your stuff. I wash off my banana, even though I'm not eating the peel, just because, like, if I cut into something, so just wash your stuff. Like, don't overcomplicate it and just start making better choices, knowing that it leads to better and greater things, especially in your relationships, your longer life, but also with your wife, kids, whatever that's important to you. If you've got people that are important in your life, then you should be doing everything possible is my thought. That would be my deep why.
I say just eat real food. Eat the way your great grandparents ate. Does that mean you can't go to McDonald's, as you said earlier? No. But for the most part, eat real food. Unprocessed. And that's a whole nother argument these days. Like everything, like olive oil is technically processed. Like we mean ultra processed foods.
What are your thoughts on these What are your thoughts on these almost meat, like these vegan burgers and stuff? Do you have an opinion on that?
As a former vegetarian for 8 years, I bought into all of that stuff, and it's I don't do well with any of that. I don't digest it well, and there's a million different ingredients in it. Like if you have them, just eat real food. That's not real food.
There's so many documentaries and podcasts out there. Like I just watched one that seemed really, really good. It was done on twins, but then it started to seem like it was pushing you to become vegan. I'm like, man, now this seems like propaganda. And not to say I'm against it. I was vegan for a long time. Mine actually was motivated by a girlfriend and she hated me and I wanted to date her. And so, but I actually, I'm fine. But as soon as we broke up, I ate a steak. My mom took me out for a steak. It was the best steak I ever had. And it really wasn't, but it's from like Applebee's, but it felt like the best steak. And I'll never forget it because like I felt energized right after that. And I realized, my skin started to fill out more. Like I just started to feel better and look better. And I was a teenager, And when I lost my appendix, I mixed between veggies and fruits and all these different things and experimented on myself. But ever since my appendix, I just feel better off like meats and fats and like some cooked green vegetables. But again, that's me. And then we got to work with each other. So, you got to play around with it. You got to see what works. And
I don't have a one size fits all diet. I have clients that are on very, very, very low carbohydrate diets. I've got clients that are a decent amount of carbohydrates, and I got everything in between. Because not everyone works well on certain people work better with more fat. Some people work better with less fat. Some people do better with more carbs. Some people do better with less carbs. I think that's a problem. In today's society, everyone's looking for that one diet that works for everyone. And it's never, they would have found it by now.
There's no one diet that works for everybody. You know, you just got to, I'm a big fan of like, just because I have no appendix, and I know a lot of people have like gut inflammation, that I work with like that kind of eating where, you know, playing around, you know, more removal, anti-inflammatory eating, you know, and seeing what works for each individual, because each individual is different. And so I would suggest that too. Like you want to see what makes you feel good. It should make you, like, it's fuel. It should be revving up your engines and make you feel good. And if it's not, and sometimes you don't even know until you start taking things out and you're like, man, I feel a lot better now that I reduced my sugar, for example, which is an easy one. Man, I know alcohol is not bad, but I didn't think it was affecting me until I only drank on the weekends and took it away. Man, I feel so much. I don't even need, I've heard people who got rid of alcohol and lowered their sugar, and they even didn't need as much caffeine. And they were sleeping because they were sleeping better and all the other things that came with it. So you got to play around with it. So for those looking to integrate some wellness practices into their busy lives, what are some other things, some other tips or effective strategies you might recommend for those listening?
Sleep is key. Absolutely. Sleep is key. Move, eat real food, and do something to manage your stress. I see high school kids stressed. And stress is definitely causing a big issue. With stress depletes a lot of nutrients. It depletes magnesium, depletes the B vitamins, the fat-soluble vitamins. And it's insane how much stress we have in our lives.
Yeah, my daughter, who's 14, earlier this year, she came home and she's like, what's anxiety? And I'm like, why do you ask? Apparently, majority of her friends and people she knows and people in school have anxiety and are taking medicine for it. And she didn't even know what it was because she doesn't deal with it. She's... I don't want to use the word normal because that's normal. She's not normal. But she's healthy mentally, physically, and just ask that question. And the new thing too is vaping at her school. And I'm so proud of her. She's like, I asked her about that because apparently research is showing like a majority of kids are vaping. She started telling me how they've had to close down all the bathrooms, but like a few because so much vaping was going on in these schools. Yeah. And we live in a good school district. This is everywhere. And so they got to it's like ultra security. Like you got to ask and somebody's got to walk you to the bathroom. It's like crazy. Wow. It's like a jail cell in there. And she's talking about the vaping. And she told me this recently, like she had to get rid of some friends because all they wanted to do was vape and she didn't want to be around with that. And I'm so proud of her. Part of it is she wants to be a police officer one day. She sees it as just helping people, and she's wanted to be one since she was like 7. And so she knows that would affect those things, but she just doesn't want to be associated with those type of people. And these people you wouldn't even know. These are good kids with good grades and they're in sports with her. They're excelling athletes, but they're sitting here got like a vaping addiction because they're putting in, and not that this conversation needs to be about that, but this goes into health too. And it's just, this is what our kids are exposed to. Things I was never exposed to, things you're never exposed to. We just want our kids to go to school, get a good education, build some relationships and the benefits of that and sports and all that. But here we are, she's having to deal with all these other things.
The kids are definitely, as a father, I need to lead as a good example for my daughter. I think that's done pretty well. I see these kids in the morning getting coffee, drinks with tons of sugar, and I'm just shaking my head. I'm like,
oh yeah, I mean, your average Starbucks drink is worse than like 4 scoops of ice cream or something like that. I remember. So yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, so where do you see like the future of wellness and pain and eliminating? Where do you see it heading? You know, we talked earlier about like it hasn't made much from the professional to the most people. You know, so where do you see it? You know, is heading, especially with the integration of technology and traditional practices, and we're seeing like Eastern and Western medicine combining now and things of that nature.
I'm confident it's moving in the right direction. I wish it would be moving a little faster than it is, but at least it's moving in the right direction. People are starting to wake up and see. I think part of this is there's doctors though, like my age, that are retiring or near retirement that have health issues, and they're doing what the medical system said, and they're not getting any better. So they're starting to look outside the box. So now that that's happening, more people are being aware of it, And I have confidence it's going to move in the right direction and keep moving that direction. But it's like anything else. There's always going to be some people aren't going to do what it takes. At the end of the day, the person has to do what it takes. What do you think?
Yeah, and we also have to realize why it may. I think we're given false information about the past. I looked back on my genealogy, for example, who were just like farmers through most of my. So my family moved to America, the Arnold line, in slightly before the Revolutionary War, and then we had somebody in there, and so I look back, and a lot of them were living to their like 70s and 80s, so like they were living a pretty decent. And when we're told like, oh, average age was 25, but we have to remember how much more war and murder and famine and all these things, and health played a factor too. It wasn't just economics, but at the end of the day, they didn't. All they had was real, and their lives were activity, and they were outside most of the time. So like all the things that we have to tell people to do was really just part of a daily life and a choice and everything else. Where now it's like we have access to so much stuff that isn't real and artificial, right? So like, right now we're in an artificial environment to record this, which is fine, but that's why we need to get in the real. But like from the foods that we eat to our environment, I'm getting to the point where, and I would love maybe what you're doing too, look at your life. And if a majority of it, like we say the 80-20, you hear that. I don't really use that. Maybe you do, but people hear 80-20. So if 80% of my food is real, I'm doing the right thing. Look at your entire environment. And maybe you can't work outside, but if you have Wi-Fi, can you get on your computer and just be in the sunrise a little bit? I don't know. Like think outside the box a little bit. What about your environment? Like everything from what you're exposing your eyes, your ears, your nose, your body. That's why I think the 75 hard has some of its benefit, that workout, if you've heard of it, because like one of the workouts, you have to do 2 workouts a day. One you have to do outside, right? I think that's great because it gets you outside. And I think we need to also think about not just the food. Like I said, we need to get more of just everything is so fake in our lives that can we get more real? And that's what I was getting at with that.
That's a great point. That is actually a great point.
Yeah, so that's where I'm coaching people. That's what I'm doing with my kids and my clients. But we got a few minutes here. But like, what do you do personally, to ensure your own continuous growth and ability to support others effectively? Like, what are some of the dailies or the practices and things you love to share on here that people might benefit from?
And I eat well. Friday night, Saturday night, I'll go off and do whatever I want. Work out every day, whether that's out in the woods, hiking on the Appalachian Trail, walking in the gym, movement every day, eat well, sleep well. I'm always studying and learning. I haven't had cable TV since for at least 10 years. I'm always reading and educating. I'm always working on my brain. I'm always learning every day. I think that works for me. Would that work for you?
That works, man. I like it. And, what is one piece of advice you'd like to leave listeners with today? Like something they can start doing right away that we haven't talked about? Because you left a lot of nuggets. You left a lot of good stuff here for people. Something they can start doing right away to improve their quality of life. Could be mentally, could be physical, could be something emotional, could be something spiritual.
Be happy.
What if they say they can't? Or they don't know how?
Figure it out.
Phone a friend. I wrote a book, actually, not to promote this, but my second book is called Joyful Warrior, which comes out March 8th. And I talk about that. And I'm a big believer that we can find joy through the adversity. So sometimes if you can't do it yourself, you don't always need a therapist. In fact, some of my best healing has been through some of the things we actually talked about here. Getting out in nature, camping, talking to others, moving, eating real food. I mean, food should be good, by the way. Like, I think that's the other thing we haven't really talked about, eating real. Learn to season, man. There's nothing wrong with seasoning. Like, learn to season your food. Like, and if you like my wife loves grilled chicken, seasoned grilled chicken. So I do that almost, I don't want to say weekly, pretty regularly. Seasoned grilled chicken with something. Like, I find ways to make things she and the kids like healthier. For example, this past week I made a healthier chicken Alfredo without any dairy, but you wouldn't even know the difference. My best friend with that one, some garlic, some grilled chicken, good seasoning, and I used coconut milk and some other things to make a creamy kind of sauce. Yeah, you take some frozen cauliflower too is a way to do it, and just smooth it up, and basic seasoning, salt, pepper, garlic, right? So I'm just sharing some tips there. Man, this came to me while we're here. I always like to have something different. Like I had somebody on here. I was like, hey, before we leave here, if you had a unicorn-sized wish, what's one thing you would wish for? I think you've already gotten to that. I've asked some other things, but man, while I was sitting there, I was just thinking, if somebody living or dead could have joined us today, who would it be and why?
Wow.
Should I have prepped you more?
Leonardo da Vinci.
Why?
He was like one of the first to really look at all aspects of the human body. Everything. Not just one area. And I think that's part of the problem with today's society, especially with the medical community. You just look at one area. One mental, physical, everything works together in the body. And that's one thing I learned from the osteopath in France, Dr. Royer. They do things differently in Europe than they do in the United States. And that's why their therapy is entirely different. They work with the whole body, not just one area.
I like
I
that.
also think social, what you were just saying about social media has made us less social. And there's plenty of research showing that the people that live the longest have the best social lives. There's areas in Italy that have lived long lives, and they are very social people.
Yeah. Some of the most social people, like walking and talking and hanging out. People in community live the longest. People out in nature and fresh air. I mean, I had a friend who had bipolar. I guess he still does. But he moved from cold Midwest to warm Florida and started, and being bipolar, he sometimes didn't want to be around people because he didn't know he'd have like an outburst, essentially. Started getting in a part of a church community group and things of that nature. And he basically got off his medication for a while. He's back on it, but just more as like a safety precaution. And he has a team of people, but he's never been better just by getting outdoors more and being around people. Things that like people that deal with like depression or mental health or other things going on, you don't want to be around people, but like even in your hardest moments, you got to do it. I love the Leonardo da Vinci too, just as like I believe we're all artists and creators. So I just love that example and to use that in what he was able to do at his time period. In fact, there's a book I read that goes into his mind. He was way ahead of his time, and he was looked at as something was wrong with him, but there were so many things right. You know, there's a book called the Leonardo or the Da Vinci Method, and it was like, you know, how his brain was just overactive, and today it would have been diagnosed as like ADHD, but he was able to harness a lot of things to create and explore and see almost into the future, right? So I love that example. And so we'll leave you with that, man. So for those that are interested in learning more about your work or getting in touch with you, what are some of the best ways to connect? What are some resources?
The Facebook, Michael Padula, website, www.hpa.coach, for Human Performance Authority Coach. Those are the two best ways.
Okay. Oh, I wrote trampoline down here. I forgot to mention it earlier when we were talking about like walking. I'm a big believer in trampoline. It's a low impact thing, and it's actually like the more people can do that can prevent things like varicose veins. I was going to say that, and just
lymphatic
getting that
flow.
blood flow. What's up?
Lymphatic flow.
Yeah, and getting blood flow, and how that, the calves are essentially like the brain of your lower half. They've found so much. If you can just get blood flow in your calf, what it's going to do to your whole body, and with everything is we're seeing like blood clots and everything else. So I wrote that down. I was like, do I want to mention here at the end? Who cares about the flow, right? Let's mention it because it's going to help somebody. And
absolutely.
So go walk around the woods with somebody else and have some fun on a trampoline. And go check out some Leonardo da Vinci. I hope you guys found that well. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time here. This was a real pleasure. Enjoyed your information nuggets. And for those that enjoyed, connect. We'll also leave some stuff in the notes below. And just remember, this is another free resource to help you guys out, strive every single day. So thank you for listening. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, because that's the one thing you make a difference is, you may not feel like you're having much purpose, but just even sharing this episode with a lot of people, one person might benefit, and that could help a lot of other people. So thank you again for tuning in to Strive 365. Take care.